What is up, guys? Lou here again for Techno Loco, and we're having another Maximize Monday. And today's Maximize Monday, we're going to be talking about how to take better photos with your mobile phone. Now, it is still mobile photography, and all the different things you learned about how to take better photos still apply here. But there are some very interesting and rather limiting things about using a smartphone to take photos. I mean, in recent years, it has gotten a lot better. But today we're going to talk about how to take better mobile photos working within those limitations. I mean, we're going to divide this into two parts. The first part is going to be about the shooting itself, taking better shots with your phones, and then the second part is going to be how to get the most out of the shots you actually took. So first part is about the shooting experience. Now, when you're shooting with your smartphone, I mean, it is pretty liberating. You don't have to carry around a lot of gear. All you need to have with you is your little smartphone, and you're ready to go take shots, right? And definitely that's the idea. That it's a pick up and go experience. But most smartphones also have a manual mode. So I think the first tip here would be to use the manual mode on your camera. If you don't know how to use it, then you learn how to use it. I do have a couple other videos here on the channel that are talking about the different manual settings of DSLR cameras, and those also kind of apply the same way to smartphone cameras. Okay, so you can check that out. I'll put the link to the playlist here and also down in the thing down below. And first thing you got to take note of when you're using the manual mode or when you're taking more manual control over the snapshot or the photo you're taking, is you want to take control of your exposure. I'm going to put up on screen right now 3 different shots. They're of the same thing, but I exposed them slightly differently. The first shot is basically where I exposed for the shadows. Now, you want to do that sometimes because, let's say for example, the subject that you want to take is in a shadowy area, so you're gonna end up overexposing the sky. Now, this is not ideal, but if really that's what you want to take, then that's what you're gonna have to do. In this case, I was trying to take a picture of this tricycle, and he was pretty shadowy, in contrast to the sunset in the background. So what you can do in this scenario is that you can expose it like the second shot, where you're exposing for the sky. But what's gonna happen is you're gonna end up having the subject be super duper dark. And sometimes it works out, like in this case, where it's kind of just like a silhouette, but sometimes you don't want that to happen. This is what they mean when they use the term backlit, or there's a backlight. So yeah, you don't want to do that either. Or I guess the best way to go about here would be to use a good middle ground and then expose for that area, but sometimes it really doesn't exist. So what can you do on your smartphone that would help in taking this shot better? You could use an HDR mode for sure. Depending on what your smartphone or how your smartphone does it, it could literally take mere seconds, or sometimes it takes a little bit longer. And you'll have to experiment with your phone to figure that out. And I wanted also to talk about the reason why this happens. It really has to do with this dynamic range of the sensor in the smartphone. So dynamic range basically just means the difference between the brightest and the darkest areas in your image. Now, with the human eye, you can basically capture the entirety of a scene. Like, you can see details in the shadow areas of this scene, plus the sunset in the background. However, smartphone cameras and actually all digital sensors have a set limitation as to how much of that range it can capture. Sometimes it's a lot, like on SLRs or medium format cameras, but because of the small size of the sensor on a smartphone, it's kind of harder for it to capture more data. And this is one of the most irritating limitations of a smartphone, I would think. But smartphone manufacturers have been very diligent in coming up with new solutions for this problem, and your HDR mode in your phone is one of them. So use that when it's necessary. It's also important to point out that how you expose your shot also kind of tells what kind of mood you're going for. Darker shots always seem to be more dramatic than anything else, and bright poppy shots with lots of color are always more festive. So always think about that when you're taking your shot. One other tip I can give you about taking better shots is to use the rule of thirds. Now, basically, rule of thirds is just that you divide up a shot into thirds and you put your subject in one of the thirds area. I'm gonna illustrate that right here, right now. So kind of like how I'm positioned right now on screen, like literally you can slice this up into thirds, and I'm in the third on the left, I guess, or what is this? This third on the side. There's some science behind it, or there's some psychological trick behind it. I mean, it's just more interesting to look at shots this way. This is just one of the many things. I mean, you can completely center a shot and that still would be okay, and it completely depends also on what you want to achieve with your shot. But using the rule of thirds is one of those easy ways just to make your shot instantly that much better. And because smartphones are such nifty little gadgets that they can basically fit anywhere, and it can be lifted up, hoisted up into high angles or low angles, or just right up close to someone's face, I think one last tip I can give about shooting with your smartphone is to get weird angles. SLRs and all these other big cameras have trouble getting those angles because they're so big and bulky. Your smartphone, however, is very small and very compact and can basically be fitted into any sort of weird positioning. That, I think, is one of the greatest strengths of having a smartphone camera. Those were a couple of tips on how to get the shots composed well and shot better on the phone or right as it comes out of the camera. Now, you also have to think about that what comes out of your camera is not necessarily the best output you could get. The output that you get from the camera, the image that you get from there, that's an output based on how a computer thinks the image should look. Now, if you want to take more creative control over the shots that you take, you might want to start figuring out how to use, or you might want to start using some editing apps. Now, I know there's still a lot of stigma around editing your photos, but you shouldn't be afraid to edit your photos, because this way you're just trying to really push out or bring out the full potential of the shot that you took. I mean, it could be an amazing, beautiful shot, but if it's not processed correctly, it will still be found lacking. It'll be all natural for sure, but it will be not as eye-catching, in my opinion anyway. And really, it's up to you to discern whether a shot needs to be edited or not. Sometimes natural is better. Sometimes pushing that the image quality just a little bit more, just tweaking it a little bit, will really make it pop even more. So it's up to you to really decide, and depending on your style. So what editing apps are available on the market? Well, some of the most popular are Snapseed, Photoshop, Lightroom, even the Instagram photo editor is also pretty good, and VSCO. All these different apps have their own advantages and disadvantages. Personally, I use Snapseed just because it's the most convenient for me, and I don't usually edit large batches of photos on my smartphone. I have my SLR and my computer to do that. Snapseed allows you a lot of creative control on different parameters about the image, like its brightness, like its contrast, all these basic things, but also other things like its sharpness. Also allows you to tweak how brightly the shadows are exposed. So it's all these little things that you usually find in pro grade software that makes Snapseed that much more usable for me. And they package it so well, and it's so streamlined, and it basically is a very, very important tool in my day-to-day use. I use the desktop versions of Lightroom and Photoshop, I mean, on an almost daily basis, but their mobile counterparts not so much. I do know that the Lightroom mobile app has some of the functionality that the desktop application has, like batch editing photos, or saving your edit as a preset and then applying that over to many different photos. So if you're thinking about editing lots of different pictures, then probably Lightroom is your go-to app of choice. It does have a learning curve though, for sure. Photoshop also, it's kind of the same with Snapseed. It allows you to edit a bunch of the basic settings like contrast, brightness, etc, etc, etc. But I'm not all too familiar with it. The Instagram photo editor also has gotten a lot better over the last couple of years. I mean, if you are into mobile photography, then I'm pretty sure this is one of your basically launch pads where you basically started learning how to edit photos. It's gotten a lot more robust over the last few years, and I think it's pretty good. I also tried to use VSCO for a while. It really didn't jive with me. There's a lot of filters there though that simulate film looks and retro kind of looks for your images, and I think those are pretty cool also, though not really my style. So I'd end up not using VSCO a lot, and I mostly just use Snapseed. So those are a few tips on how to take better shots using your smartphone camera. I'll do more in-depth videos in the next couple of weeks on how to use Snapseed and Instagram and Lightroom and all these other things. I'll make videos for those soon. Probably next up we're probably gonna do the how to edit in Snapseed. So that's it for today's video. I think the most important thing here is that you have fun when you do go out and shoot, and really, I mean, just use your smartphone to its full capabilities. Never limit yourself by saying, oh, my phone's just an Nexus 4 or oh, my phone's just an S5 or whatever. Nah, just go out, take some interesting photos, but it takes time. You know, no one was born a genius on day one. Everyone develops their talents over time. So I guess that's all the time we have for today. Please let me know in the comment section down below, what else should I be covering about smartphone photography. Is there a specific app that you'd like me to review or to talk about? Let me know in the comment section down below. Please like the video and subscribe to my channel, and also like us on Facebook. There's a link in the thingy down there. Again, I do thank you guys for tuning in today. This has been Lou for Techno Loco. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll see you in the next videos. You guys stay awesome.